Good evening, everyone. I would like to start this video to say this is dedicated to my good friend, 27. Um, Today's video will be a reading from probably my favorite book of all time, at least definitely my favorite nonfiction. It is Following Up, Keep It on the Positive, My Story, by Taboo of the Black Eyed Peas, with help from, of course, Steve Dennis. It's just a powerful book. There's a lot of emotion. All of it, I mean, it's coming from his heart. Just tells, the story of a little guy that just worked his own way up through the harsh world of the music business. I'm going to read a particularly strong point of the book, kind of a turning point for him. Just give you kind of idea of the man himself and the life he lived. This is about halfway through the book. Up to this part, they're still a struggling band. They are signed artists, but they haven't, sold any gold records. Haven't really broke the Billboard Top 100 yet. So here begins the reading. It is amazing how accustomed I became to the breakneck momentum and chaos of touring. So when the treadmill temporarily stopped and dumped us back in LA, I was at a loose end and a little bored. I managed to spend quality time with Josh and Mom and continue our homage to Disneyland, but my energy got restless. And the problem with restlessness is that it starts searching for fresh senses of satisfaction to fill the void. Which might explain why this period represents the starting line for pursuing wanton pleasure. Getting high, getting drunk, getting girls. Week in, week out. I had a bunch of girls on speed dial, even though I had been seeing one particular girl, whose name is not relevant, for a long time. We had met at a college gig in 1998, but I acted like a sicko. The guy in a relationship acting like the single guy, living a double life and cheating left, right, and center. That relationship's importance to me is reflected by my actions. Enough said. What mattered was the chase and the conquest that its swollen ego couldn't resist. It had not taken long for that ego to notice how being a signed artist attracted attention that I had never experienced before. The shy kid from Rosemead can now have his pick of the litter. It became a pissing contest for me to see how many girls I could get in 1 week, despite the relationship I maintained with lies and deceit. When friends didn't believe that I was pimping, I was the guy who scrolled through the address book on a cell, hit up different girls, and put their voice on speaker just to prove a point. It was like I was telling the world, see what I am now? Girls are bitches, and yes, that's how I viewed them. They were playthings that fed my need to feel good about myself. I, like you, am horrified at reading this now, but that was me back then. That's who I was, mimicking what I perceived to be the cool rock and roll lifestyle. Ironic when you think about it. As a group, we did everything to put distance between us and the stereotypes of hip-hop. As a person, all I thought about... These are very thick pages, friends. 1 second. As a person, all I thought about was living up to the stereotype of the rock and roll wild boy. I was a pathetic slave to the false notoriety of Hollywood. I tried working out the why long before writing this book, with a therapist or in counseling, and the nearest explanation I arrived was that somehow substance abuse filled the void that was left once a sense of achievement had been satiated. It had also been suggested to me that something in me didn't feel worthy of being a signed artist. I don't know about that. Sometimes the reality is so twisted that I'm not sure there's much truth to understand. What's fucked up is fucked up. End of story. All I know is that the addictive element of my personality chased a new obsession, and the more I indulged, the more I wanted it. The more I wanted it, the more I needed it. I was now smoking weed on a daily basis, popping an ecstasy pill every other night. I'd gone from smoking an eighth to a quarter pound of weed, from a quarter pound to half a pound, and so on. Ecstasy tablets became easy to get too. I'd met this guy named Bubba in an LA club, and I'd asked him for some pills after my Glam Slam experience. I've got as much as you can take, he said with a smile. You serious? I'm serious, if you've got the dough. I've got the dough, I told him, interpreting his question as doubt. I bought 20 on the spot. I had randomly found myself a supplier. Suddenly it was an open season and easy access to satisfy an illicit itch that would soon become habitual and excessive. I didn't care what people thought. I only cared about pushing life to the extreme, the thrill of finding the edge and teetering on it. If we were on the road, I took my vices on the bus. If we were in Los Angeles, I wanted to be out almost every night. Monday I went to Joseph's, Wednesdays was Las Palmas, Thursdays was Latin Lounge, and Saturday was 80. I drank adios motherfuckers like someone had heard that the state of California was about to announce prohibition the next day. And then I moved on to champagne and Long Island iced teas, and when I was eating in Japanese restaurants, I downed sake after sake. In between times, I drank and got high with Deja at his place. We'd drive around the freeways of Los Angeles drunk, smoking weed, and rapping to beats playing on the stereo. I can't remember the times we drove out of our minds. I never stopped to think about the consequences because within all that hyperactivity, I was having fun. I was being Mr. Popular. And Deja, he was hanging on to the same magic carpet ride. I didn't realize that I was losing myself in the process. I was interested in celebrating the false persona of Taboo of the Black Eyed Peas and in honoring Jamie Louise Gomez. Outside of the studio and away from the stage, this period was the most fun I'd ever had, and I was deaf to the echoes of my dad's early life. The genes of a drinker now dripping into mine, an invisible unconscious poison chalice being the one thing he had ever given me in his life. Maybe that's why Mom noticed the slippery slope long before anyone else, because she had seen it all before. She was asleep in bed one night when she heard me stumbling about, so she got up. I had been on another drinking and drugging binge and had woken up in the wee hours to go for a pee. I was standing there, eyes closed, still swaying, releasing this giant arch of pee when the light turned on and Mom screamed. It turned out I was peeing in the kitchen cupboard where the trash can was kept. I remember the next morning for not remembering anything and for Mom's reaction. I walked into breakfast like nothing had happened. "Morning, Mom." She ignored me and left the room. It took Celeste to remind me what had happened in the early hours. "She's worried about you, Jamie," she said. I was embarrassed and apologized, but I didn't see it as a big deal. I excused it as one of those sleepwalking accidents that happens to countless people. That's what happens when you're in denial. You ignore the small, embarrassing incidents without realizing that they are only building into one big, destructive event. By mid-1999, I was ignoring all the small incidents. I didn't see the harm in having one more drink or swallowing more illegal chemicals. The dream I had chased all my life now became almost secondary to the warped experience of getting fucked up. I had boarded the runaway train stashed with bitches, drugs, and drink, and those trains shuttle you so fast across the Rubicon and into the longest tunnel that, before you know it, there's no turning back. There's only a guaranteed derailment at some unknown point in time. For me, that point lay another 9 years down the tracks or so. Year after year, my intake of God knows what would continue increasing. I was putty in the hands of my own masochism. Then life decided to play a sick joke. It would introduce me to the love of my life at a time when I wasn't ready for him. That's what life does. It tests you at your weakest. At the crossroads, we decided to either turn right or left. It was as if God and Nanny were looking down at my behavior and asking, "Really, Jimmy? You really want to live like this?" Once again, that was an excerpt from Following Up, the story of Taboo of the Black Eyed Peas. You probably saw it there. I was getting emotional just reading it. It's really just an emotional roller coaster from the beginning of it to the very end. But definitely check it out. It's probably the best book ever written. I mean, second to the Bible, of course, but until next time, this is the Vanilla Moan.